Culture wars. Just something I was thinking about the other day. I was reading an article, I think it's from The Spectator, and it didn't reference culture wars, but it got me thinking. And I made a little missive or a little message on Telegram about it. And it's quite funny this, and in the respect of how people interpret culture wars, how long it's been going on, and what does it mean, etc. So the way I look at it's as simple as this: the culture wars have been going on for years in this country, not just overnight. But sadly, for a lot of people, only when they see the physicality, the defacing of statues, or the threat of statues being taken down, do they actually realise the full extent of the culture wars in the respect, again, that they've been going on for, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years even. There's been an undermining of British culture and British society for decades now. And I was thinking about the articles reading, and I was thinking about some memories I have, how things have changed in this country in respect of there seems to be sort of an element in this country which has been developing for years now. It come to the forefront again in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter movement. But even before that, we had a lot of stuff going on in this country. We don't realise to the extent and to what extent the damage it does to the actual fabric of this nation. Obviously, you've got the LGBTI, whatever. I completely lost what they're called now. The undermining sort of the British family. We have obviously immigration. We've got a lot of people now coming to this country constantly complaining about this country and giving an actual platform to complain, and in many cases actually changing legislation, changing how things are governed in this country, changing how we're meant to think about certain matters, how we should look back in our history, and sort of like the mantra of the white privilege, white guilt, etc., constantly being pushed. But then, like I say, going back when I was younger, was it introduced in the educational system as well? Because you remember years ago, I don't actually remember this, but it's been referenced before. Richard de Lionheart, Josh was speaking about this when he was young. Luckily enough, he jumped on a stream he did, and what he was saying when he was young, a lot of the school books he was reading, child school books, there was obviously there weren't English kids actually in the books they were reading. It was predominantly Muslim or Indian sort of names. You want to use Sikh, Hindu sort of names, characters in a lot of the books. So, like he said, he questioned it at school, and the teacher says, "Well, no, that's in this country. There's a lot of people like that." So they try to be universal for everybody. And is that a part of the culture wars? Is that a part of us? Is that a part of the undermining of the educational system? And you've got examples, obviously, with the sexualisation of young children, the constant thing, the gay sort of thing, the constant pushing of gay rights, for example. For a lot of people, it's become very toxic. And again, do you consider that as an undermining of British culture and British standards? Like I said, I just think some people are very naive, and they only sort of see it as in the sense of Churchill statue being defaced, Colston statue in Bristol being pulled down, other statues being removed, and obviously in today's news they're on about pulling 2 more statues down in London, not pulling them down literally, but actually taking them away and still preserving them but putting them somewhere out of the public's eye, so to speak. So that's going to continue. Name changes on streets, which we've seen recently, and that's in several towns have done that. Pubs changing the names. Again, one was called Black Boy. For some reason, that's offensive. So the pub, the brewery what owns that chain of pubs, etc., is actually renaming 4 pubs, and it goes on and on and on. And it's just like small little things. It might be localised news where something's offended something, so they're going to change it. Books being changed, for example, books being taken out of circulation, certain books being promoted what's the word for it? Sort of replacing, if you want to use that expression, other sort of books. It's sort of a modernising of how we learn as history, modernising again English literature sort of thing. So, and again, it's the culture wars. Can you talk about mainstream media in the respect of how sort of historical non-fiction dramas are played out now, where it seems to be a very diverse cast? Again, is that attacking our culture? Is that undermining our identity? So there's a plethora of things out there, and the more you look into it, you do realise it's been going on for years. It's not just an overnight thing, this. And the more I look into it, and I look at the previous Conservative governments, as we know, they don't conserve anything. It's quite disturbing. I find it really disturbing. I do. When I had a quick look back, and I wasn't really going on the internet. I was just thinking about stuff myself. What I can remember what's been in news in the last sort of 10, 20 and even when I was younger 30 years ago, how schools have changed now, the culture of our society, as communities, etc., how they've changed in that sort of short space of time, to be honest with you. So I like I said, I did the thing on Telegram yesterday. It's not fantastic, I don't like that. It's not going to waken the people up, but I thought it was quite good what I wrote. And at the end of the actual thing, one of my last sentences in the thing I wrote, in the article I wrote, is I think the culture wars have been lost, and I think they've been lost a long time ago. And the sad thing about it is, it's like in 2020 when there was the threat of the Churchill statue and they boarded it up, and a lot of people went down to London to protect the statues, the cenotaph, etc. I think, and I'm not knocking them guys for doing that, but I think it'd already been lost. I think we've lost it already, and it's gone that far now. I just don't see how we can change it. I really don't. And we've got parties like Lawrence Fox's party, for example. They're on about changing the direction of the culture wars, fighting back against culture wars. But in some respects, it should have been. This was an issue what should have been done. 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's quite surreal when I think about it. It's like they're pushing it now. But where was it 20 years ago, 30 years ago? In a lot of things what have happened in this country. And again, not everybody might remember certain things, but a little bit. I'll give you a good example. Halal coming into schools where I live, for example. We were never asked about that. We were never asked at the, let's say, local council elections, even general elections. We were never asked about that. Did your local hospital or hospitals who now serve halal, are you asked about that? You know, are we asked about stuff like that? Are we asked about certain programmes that are on the BBC? Do we actually feel we pay for the BBC? Do we have any say in the output or what comes from the BBC, etc.? So there's a lot of things there when you look back about the media, about your council and stuff like that, whereas culture and everyday things are under constant attack. So I just thought I'd have a look, just say this sort of thing. Someone will talk a little bit about this on Saturday maybe and see what you guys think. Because obviously there's a lot of things what's happened, and then again last 20, 30 years, even longer, 40 years, where you can reference and say, well, this is where it started. Everybody's opinions are different on this. For me personally, I can sort of go back about 30 years, to be honest with you. I'm just a little nitpicking things what were happening in everyday life, and certain legislation was being pushed through, and obviously the momentum. And it's like anything, all the Labour governments, especially the Conservative governments, you've got to imagine the Conservative government have been a lot more in power in the last 40 years, and so they've had a lot of, they've not preserved anything, let's be honest, of our identity and culture, etc. And they just seem to cede every time. They give ground bit by bit, etc. And it's all the time, just giving that little bit ground all the time. And I think 2021, we're going to see more of the stuff what we saw in 2020, the statues coming down, what do you call it, streets being renamed, buildings being renamed, universities, etc. So it's a funny thing, like the expression culture wars, and like I said, we might have won a few battles, but I think we've lost the war, and that's the truth. And again, we're never asked in a lot of these issues. A lot of these issues seem to just go to the government. We never seem to get a say in it whatsoever, and they just pass this legislation, regardless of what we think. So that's what I think anyway. I think it's a lot of the problems what we see now have been taken out of our hands completely. And again, it's like we were never asked, if you want to use that expression. So yeah, just a little bit of thinking there. So cheers anyway. So I'll see you Saturday. I might, if I do a pop-up stream before Saturday, I do. But if I don't, I don't. So I'll catch you all Saturday, and that's it really. So God bless, and I'll catch you soon.